everyone, Jason Gilbo here at JGilbo11, taking a look at the Week 17 FanDuel optimal lineup for Daily Fantasy Cafe. And as always, kind of Week 17, my best advice is just kind of be wait until last minute to start kind of getting lineups ready or kind of prepare for guys sitting out because, games don't matter. And most of these guys are kind of featured in games that do or, won't be resting starters, so that's always nice. Looking back at last week, Saints' passing game didn't necessarily pay off for us. It was a lot of Mark Ingram. Breeze got his touchdown, but we were certainly looking for multiple touchdown upside. But David Johnson, Jordy Nelson, LaShawn McCoy, Cameron Brate, Pat's defense were all featured and all in a pretty good spot and turned out pretty good numbers. So I think despite that, you probably were okay. Looking at this week and starting it off with Aaron Rodgers in the cash game, I think that's pretty much where you're going to be going this week. And also kind of using him with Jordy Nelson. David Johnson's one of the guys that I don't really mind, pairing with these guys because, 9,300, LA team that really hasn't been great defensively of late. And overall, Johnson's just basically been a lock for 15, 20 plus FanDuel points. So Johnson's in play for me this week despite not having anything to play for. Arizona should be a fine offense to target. But back to Aaron Rodgers here, Jordy Nelson, game that matters, Lions-Packers, game on the line, the Sunday night game. Green Bay and that passing attack are just absolutely rolling right now. You look at, that defense, both secondaries are not good. We saw in that first game, it was a big-time shootout. And we're getting that correlation here with Golden Tate on the opposite side. I definitely don't mind that. 5,700 is a really nice price for him. So I think Aaron Rodgers, Jordy Nelson, Golden Tate, a pretty good core to start out your passing kind of cash game attack there. And David Johnson, D'Angelo Williams. D'Angelo Williams, don't ignore that little D there. I did this a couple days ago, but he's going to be a guy who should be in line for about 15, 20 touches against this Cleveland team. At 4,500, basically priced as a kicker. I think you can look at him in this great matchup against Cleveland, which has been a bottom 5 rush defense for the season, and also bottom 5 in FanDuel points allowed to opposing running backs. So I don't mind him. I think it's a good way to go, especially given the fact that you can pay up at basically every other spot and feel pretty good about it. Doug Baldwin's a guy who's interesting this week. I like him a lot more in GPPs. I don't mind him in a cash sense just because this lineup around him is such a high floor. Thomas Rawls, Alex Collins really haven't shown anything particularly great, but and usually we look at San Francisco and want to attack on the ground, but I don't mind actually using Russell Wilson and Baldwin, which we'll get to in a minute here in the GPP lineup, but Baldwin's a decent option here to kind of round that out. Travis Kelce, 6,800. They're choosing to pay up for a tight end. I don't mind it. I think Kelce's been involved enough in the offense to give you a pretty high floor. I think double-digit FanDuel points is pretty much what you can expect out of him this week. Decent matchup. San Diego's middle of the road against tight ends. And then we wrap things off with Steven Gostkowski. Completely fine using him this week. 4,700. While it's on the road, New England, healthy team total there. And he should be, a lock for a couple field goal attempts. So Kansas City was an interesting one this week because I think a lot of us will be looking at Pittsburgh, New England, Seattle as kind of the defenses to target. I don't necessarily mind the Chiefs. I think it's a nice contrarian play, even in a cash sense, because Kansas City has been one of the more dominant defenses this year in terms of fantasy production. Even when they give up 20 plus points, they never seem to really be below 8. It's only been a couple times this season. So I definitely don't mind going that route. GPP, we're looking at a similar core. The only thing that's different is we're using Russell Wilson and bumping up Golden Tate to a Michael Thomas. Interesting way to go here because I think, the correlation between Baldwin and Wilson, as we saw last week, can win you a GPP because I saw it throughout a couple of leaderboards. And kind of rounding out basically the similar core, you're still getting Packers exposure with Jordy Nelson. You got Doug Baldwin there, who I think is a great correlation play. Michael Thomas, you're getting exposure to that Saints game. And also given those two high floor, high ceiling running backs in that spot, I definitely don't mind it. The other kind of change there is, it bumps up. It uses Matt Bryant, who I like this week. Tampa Bay, interesting GPP defense, especially with a Carolina offense that's not looking good at all. No real anything for Carolina to play for at this point. Tampa Bay, it's a long shot to get in, but they'll be going out trying to win that. So I think Tampa Bay defense has been playing pretty well of late. I think there is some upside there. Optimal stack, I mean, no different here for me. Basically just plugging in Devontae Adams into that cash game lineup and just keeping the same Matt Bryant Tampa Bay. For me, I mean, Rodgers, Adams, Nelson is the optimal stack of this week, especially when you compare it with Golden Tate as a correlation. Use David Johnson on the other side. So, I mean, it's just, it plugs into a really high floor. I actually don't even mind this in a cash game sense. So, I think there's a lot of upside with this stack this week. If you're looking to be contrarian, I think in terms of a GPP stack, Jacksonville is one that was looked at pretty highly. Marquise Lee, Blake Bortles, and Allen Robinson. And I also saw Russell Wilson, Doug Baldwin, Jimmy Graham. So I think, those were the three, it takes value into consideration, but those were the three value and also optimal stacks of the week, because you can also look at the Saints, Breeze, Cooks. You can also look at, Atlanta. So definitely different routes you can go, but this was the one that popped up first. And I think Packers is probably one a lot of people will be on this week. So that's going to wrap things up with the Week 17 FanDuel Optimal breakdown. Be sure to catch out the rest of our Week 17 content, and we will be definitely heading into the playoffs with, the same type of stuff going. So be sure to be on the lookout for that.